I'm pleased to sponsor the Alternative Interview.
And from there, it's Kingstonian. So how did that arise?
So again, we kind of got to that point where Ernie and I had he wasn't playing me very regularly, and we'd kind of clashed a couple of times. I wasn't enjoying it. Again, I'd come back from Staines, done well, and then he'd kind of got some more experienced forwards in again for the new season, and I just wasn't playing. So we went to play Kingstonian away, and I was on the bench, and I kind of spent the whole time looking around Kings Meadow and the changing rooms there and kind of going, I really, I could see myself playing here. And then randomly, about 3 days later, we got a call saying, Kingstonian are keen to take you on loan, which was around sort of December, January time of that season. So I jumped at the chance, and I went to Kingstonian on loan, had my debut against Canvey Island, who were top of the league at the time, at home, and was really nervous. I don't know why. I just remember being really, really nervous about my debut. And Steve Sedgley was the manager. And I've always said to this day that that Sedge is one of the best managers I ever had, just because, again, it was, loans can be a little bit empty at times, and, you're not quite sure what you're going to get out of a loan player. But for me, my two loan spells at Staines and Kingstonian really kind of got my career back on track. And before my debut, Sedge brought me into the office. He could see I was nervous, and he kind of was reassuring me and everything. And then as I got up to walk out, he just kind of said, "Oh, Sillsy, by the way, I've put £10 on you to score the first goal." And it just massively gave me this psychological lift. And I went out and scored the first goal as well, and we won 2-1. And it was brilliant. Again, I had a really good month there, scored a few goals. And then they came in for me permanently, and I just basically begged Basingstoke to go at that point. I'd kind of had enough. I really enjoyed my football at Kingstonian and couldn't wait to go back there, and had a really successful season that second season there.
And at this stage as well, of course, you're a part-time footballer. So what are you doing in your personal life in terms of your career outside of football?
So I kind of, after uni, so I was obviously, when I was at Camberley, I took a year after my A-levels. I took a year out because I really wanted to concentrate on trying to get as far up the footballing ladder as possible. So at 18, I took a year out. That was when I then managed to get a move from Camberley to Basingstoke. So, obviously it worked to a certain extent, going up a few leagues. Then I went to uni. While I was at uni, I was at Basingstoke. So it was quite nice because I didn't have to take out student loans and things because I was getting paid a little bit of money for football. So that was brilliant. And then when I kind of went to Kingstonian, and at the end of my Basingstoke career, I was working for the Civil Service Sports Council, who just basically were providing sports for civil servants all around the country. And I was a sports development officer, so I was in charge of about 6 or 7 sports, travelling up and down the country. One day I'd be up in Newcastle, overseeing the civil service football final, and then the next day I'd be at Bisley shooting clay pigeons. I mean, it was a really good job, really, really interesting. And then I kind of moved on from there, went into a bit of marketing with the Two Swords Group, who owned Alton Towers in Chessington and Thorpe Park. So I actually worked in the Mansion House in Chessington, in the middle of Chessington World of Adventures, marketing the annual pass for them. So this was kind of how it was all going. And even, that was a job that I was doing even in my first year at Aldershot as well. So it was definitely a balancing act. But yeah, they were two interesting jobs, as much as, my heart was more always into the football than the jobs, that's for sure.
And so at Kingstonian, it says here you're top scorer in 02-03, 25 goals, player of the year. Also played for the England semi-professional team. So your career is starting to take hold, isn't it? Because you're achieving things, but if you're getting selected for the England team, then you're beginning to get noticed as well at the same time.
Yeah, that season at Kingstonian was brilliant. We did well. We were top of the, we were above mid-table at least. We were never quite challenging for titles and things like that. But yeah, I actually, this is where myself and Wikipedia sometimes get a little bit, argumentative. I scored 28 goals that year for Kingstonian. And, it was fantastic. I played again with some really good players. I loved playing with Steve Sedgley. It then all went a little bit wrong at Kingstonian because the new owner came in, who just basically, took the club for his own financial gain. There was no real vision for the club in the end, which was really a shame. Steve Sedgley left because of it. He didn't want to work with him. And his assistant, Kim Harris, took over. And it all kind of just started getting a little bit sour towards the end of the season. So they offered me a really good contract for the next year, which, I agreed was nice. So we signed the contract and they put it in a drawer. So they put it in a drawer and said, look, we just want to make sure that we can honour this contract for next year. So we'll just keep it there, and then we'll put it into the FA once we get clearance that it's, we're all going to be all right. Because I think the ground had been sold to AFC Wimbledon at that point as well. And it was all up in the air a little bit. And I remember driving home from, I must have actually still been working in the Civil Service Sports Council because I was in Wickham at the time. So I was driving home along the M40 down towards the M25, which was always a lovely part of the journey. And just getting a call from a mate who said that, I think it was Scott Tarr actually. Scott Tarr rang me and said that he'd had Stuart Cash on the phone. And Stuart had rung him and said, what would the chances of possibly, getting me to talk to them and talk to Aldershot about coming over. So I knew that the contract was in the drawer, and I was like, well, it can't hurt. There's nothing guaranteed at Kingstonian at the moment. At least, I've signed a contract, but there's nothing absolutely 100% guaranteed. And so I thought, I knew that Aldershot had obviously been promoted, and I thought it's another progression in my career. So I spoke to Stuart, and then eventually, obviously, came in to meet Terry and Stuart, and John McGinty was there as well when I met him, and it all just kind of went from there. Really, that was how the Aldershot interest came around. And I know Kim Harris, the Kingstonian manager, never quite forgave me for not really being open with him about it. But for me, it was I don't know, I'd seen both sides of football where people were loyal and people weren't quite as loyal. And it was just such a progression for me. And it was my hometown club, the biggest club in the area where I'd grown up. And it was just an opportunity I couldn't turn down. And again, have absolutely no regrets. I love Kingstonian. I still love them. I still look out for their results. But Aldershot was just another massive step up.
And that's it. I mean, I had dealings with the people at Kingstonian around that time in the job I was doing, and they were difficult, I have to say. My job was outside of football at that time, what I was doing, but dealing with them, I found it extremely difficult. And you just got the sense that it was a club in decline at that time, which was pretty sad because it was a huge club as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they probably kicked themselves a little bit because they made the mistake at the time. You obviously put in a retain list. So anyone under the age of 24, as long as they were on the retain list, then obviously you could, ask for a fee and things like that under the Bosman ruling. But I think because I'd signed this contract and they put it in a drawer, they'd left my name off the retain list. And that wasn't my fault. I didn't tell them not to do that. So they didn't, they weren't due any money from it, unfortunately. But they're fighting. They're getting back there, it seems, and just about got their club back, I believe. So hopefully they kick on. And like you say, it was always a massive club. So hopefully they get back to where they deserve to be.
So you are an Aldershot Town player now, and as you just alluded to earlier on, it was your local club. It was it was an easy decision for you because of the stature of the club and that history that it had, of course, being an ex-Football League club on the way back, trying to get back to the Football League under the new guys. And well, it doesn't really start any better than playing at home live on Sky, 3,500. You play in Accrington Stanley, which is a traditional old fixture, and then you're on the score sheet on your debut. So you couldn't really script that, could you?
No, absolutely. And from the first moment, like I say, when I walked in and met Terry and spoke to him, and it was a weird one really, because growing up, Aldershot never always had the cleanest reputation, shall we say. So it was always one of those where I was never sure growing up how much I loved or didn't like Aldershot Town as just a local footballer, because I was always a Man United supporter growing up. So, you looked around at the local football clubs and you were never quite sure. And then obviously when they were building after the reformation and things, you suddenly just, your interest started to spike. And I remember obviously speaking to Terry and, like I say, John McGinty came in when I was negotiating contracts and things. And he balked at my goal bonus that I was being offered. And his question to me at the time was, well, why do I want to be paying you that if we lose 4-3? Why should I be paying you if you score a hat trick and we lose 4-3? Why should I be paying you a goal bonus? And I just looked around and said to him, well, maybe you should be fining the defenders if that's the case. And that was it, really. Just, I just felt so at home. And like you say, the first game, we had a good pre-season. First game live on Sky, I think it was about 100 degrees, and that's not even an exaggeration. It was the hottest day of the year, and I was never great in the heat. The black hair never helped with that. And I just remember Stuart Tanner delivering, probably the best moment of his Aldershot career as well, which was fantastic. That it led to the start of mine, and it was perfect. I still look back at it. I still look back at that goal. Just everything about that header was perfectly executed in terms of going back across the keeper, straight into the corner. And it just set the tone. I find that, I scored on my debut for a lot of clubs, but it just gives you that little lift, and then you can go on and really kick on, and it gets you into the fans' heart straight away. And, Aldershot, the fans are so integral to absolutely everything that happens at that club. It was fantastic for me just to immediately get that bond with them, being a local lad, and then kicked on with, scored, I think, in my next couple of games as well. And that really just cemented my love for the club and the fans' love for me as well already.
Tanfield's cross is a beauty for Tim Sills. Aldershot announced their arrival in the conference, and it's one of their new recruits, Tim Sills, who quickly shows what he's all about.
Because it was a great start to the season. Wins at Margate, Telford. You're on the score sheet there. It's 5 in the first 6, and of course it's often forgotten here. And we'll cover this a bit because it was an exceptional season, and we'll talk about the way the season panned out. But you're playing in the National Football League. You're playing in the conference, in the National League as it's called now. All of a sudden, with some big clubs in that league, but you're part-time. And that is a huge thing to just sort of consider, to be a part-time team under those kind of teams that you're playing. Yeah,
I mean, it was, it's something now where the part-time teams, there were still quite a few part-time teams, obviously, at that level at the time. And, that is something that's less and less as we go on. It's more and more full-time teams at that level as well. And even levels below now where you're getting your full-time teams. But, yeah, being part-time was a big ask. I don't know how I would have coped with that if I'd been a bit older with a family and stuff, because it took so much of your time. But it was just, I was so lucky to play in so many good dressing rooms, and it's that sort of thing that is the key. You've got that camaraderie, and you've got that team spirit, and everyone's kind of working towards the same goal, and you haven't got any bad eggs in the changing room, and it just makes it so much easier. So it was tough, going up to Halifax on a Tuesday or a Friday night. I remember going up there when it was snowing once, and that must have been obviously a night game. So I can't remember that was a Tuesday or a Friday, and scoring a couple then as well. And it was just things like that. You get back on the coach, and if you've got a good team spirit and you're doing well and you're successful, then it makes it easier. I can't imagine what it would have been like being part-time and being near the bottom. I can imagine that being quite soul destroying. But we had such a good team again, so many good young players. the experienced people like Ray Warburton, who, you know, is just absolutely incredible what a colossus he was. And it just, you know, everything was right about the club at the time. And I think we averaged over 3,000 at home that year with the fans. And, you know, if you're turning up and you've got that cheering you on and the East Bank rocking every other week, then it does make the job a lot easier, that's for sure. Just so much talent in that squad, and even the loan players we brought in, and then the players we brought in like your Adam Millers and, you know, Steve Watson subsequently, and people like that, just absolute colossal players who all deserve to have the brilliant careers they did. It was one of those where, like I say, I only got dropped twice that season, and to be dropped for that game was something that was heartbreaking at the time.